Welcome back to Edge of XG. This is the Bundesliga expected goals rating report for March 21st, 2026. In this episode, we move through the full analytical picture in a clean order. First, the power index, then recent form, then the round 27 forecast card, and finally, the market value radar, where the model highlights the strongest price gaps on the board. Let's start with the big picture. At the top of the Bundesliga power index, Bayern Munich are still the clear number one. Their overall rating comes in at 0.621, which keeps them comfortably ahead of the rest of the league in this snapshot. Behind Bayern, Bayer Leverkusen holds second place on 0.399. Borussia Dortmund are third on 0.358. RB Leipzig sit fourth on 0.264. That top four already tells you a lot about the current structure of the league. Bayern still own the strongest overall profile. Leverkusen remains solid on both sides of the ball. Dortmund are strong enough to stay in the upper tier, and Leipzig continue to look dangerous, especially through their attacking side. Just below that front group, Mainz and Hoffenheim are almost level, with both teams landing around 0.098 overall. Stuttgart are just behind them, then Werder Bremen, then Freiburg. That middle zone is tighter than the top, and that usually matters because smaller differences can still create very different match probabilities depending on home advantage and the opponent profile. Now look at the lower half. Eintracht Frankfurt sit 10th, followed by Borussia Mönchengladbach, Union Berlin, and Augsburg. Then come Köln, St. Pauli, Hamburg, Heidenheim, and Wolfsburg at the bottom. One of the most interesting names there is Augsburg. They are only 13th in the overall power table, but when we shift to recent form, they become one of the key talking points in the whole report. So let's move to form. In the last 5 matches table, Augsburg are number 1. They lead the league in recent form strength, even though their long-run power rating is still sitting in the lower half. That is exactly why it helps to separate structural power from short-term momentum. Leipzig are second in the form table. Leverkusen are third. Stuttgart are fourth. Werder Bremen are fifth. Dortmund are sixth. Now here is the contrast that stands out. Bayern are still the strongest overall team in the model, but they are only 11th in the recent form table. So the model is basically telling us two things at once. Bayern remain the most powerful team in the broad rating path, but they are not the hottest team over the last 5 matches. That distinction matters. At the bottom of the recent form table, Heidenheim are last, just behind Hamburg and Wolfsburg. Köln are also deep in the negative zone. That means some of these lower-ranked teams are not just weak in the larger power structure, they are also arriving in poor recent shape. Now let's get into the actual match forecasts. The first match on the board is Bayern Munich against Union Berlin. This is the strongest home position in the report. Bayern are projected at 3.09 expected goals, while Union Berlin sit at 1.18. The home win probability is 81.7%. The draw is just 8.4%, and the away win is 9.9%. This is the most one-sided result profile on the card. The scoreline cluster reflects that. The leading outcomes are 3-1, 2-1, and 3-0. This is also the strongest goals environment in the report. Over 2.5 goals comes in at 81.6%. So Bayern are not only the strongest team in the overall rating table, they also own the clearest match outcome and the clearest goals angle of the week. Next up is Wolfsburg against Werder Bremen. This match is far more balanced. Wolfsburg are projected at 1.25 expected goals, while Werder Bremen are at 1.59. The away side has a slight edge, with a 37.7% win probability against 33.5% for Wolfsburg. The draw sits at 28.9%. The 3 most likely scorelines are 1-1, 1-2, and 0-1. So the picture here is competitive, but with a mild tilt toward Werder. This is also the strongest corners environment on the board. Expected total corners are 10.38, and over 9.5 corners lands at 56.6%. If you are looking for the best pure corners signal in the report, this is it. Now to Heidenheim against Leverkusen. Leverkusen carry the stronger profile here, and the forecast shows it clearly. Heidenheim are at 1.28 expected goals, while Leverkusen are up at 2.17. The away win probability is 53.4%. The home win is 25.8%, and the draw is 20.7%. The top score lines are 1-2, 1-1, and 0-2. So this is not just a narrow edge, it is a real away lean, and it comes with a high goals environment as well. Over 2.5 goals is sitting at 71.1%, which makes this one of the stronger totals games on the slate. The next game is Köln against Borussia Mönchengladbach. This one is much tighter. Köln are projected at 1.40 expected goals, Gladbach at 1.25. The home win probability is 43.4%, the draw is 30.5%, and the away win is 26.1%. The top score lines are 1-1, 1-0, and 2-1. This is the kind of match where the home side has the edge, but not enough separation to call it comfortable. The draw still lives in the distribution, and the scoreline mix supports that. Then we move to Dortmund against Hamburg. This is another one of the strong home setups on the card. Dortmund are projected at 2.45 expected goals, while Hamburg are down at 0.93. The home win probability is 76.0%. The draw is 13.4%, and the away win is 10.6%. The leading score lines are 2-0, 2-1, and 1-1. Over 2.5 goals is 69.3%, so this is also one of the more aggressive goal environments in the report. Dortmund are not quite at Bayern's level in this weekly card, but they are still carrying a very strong home position. Mainz against Frankfurt is a more moderate home lean. Mainz are projected at 1.63 expected goals, against 1.10 for Frankfurt. The home win lands at 52.7%. The draw is 27.5%, and the away win is 19.9%. The most likely score lines are 1-1, 1-0, and 2-1. So this is a positive setup for Mainz, but still a match with enough balance to keep the draw alive. Over 2.5 goals comes in at 56.9%, so the totals profile is slightly above neutral. Now to St. Pauli against Freiburg. This is one of the most balanced matches in the whole report. St. Pauli are at 1.07 expected goals, Freiburg are at 1.28. The home win probability is 32.8%. The draw is 34.6%. The away win is 32.6%. That is basically a three-way match. The scoreline cluster tells the same story. 1-1 leads, followed by 0-1 and 0-0. This is exactly the kind of fixture where the draw deserves real respect because the model is not giving either side real separation. And then we get to Augsburg against Stuttgart, which may be the most interesting clash on the board. Augsburg are projected at 1.67 expected goals, Stuttgart at 1.65. So at the expected goals level, this game is almost perfectly balanced. But when you add the full probability matrix, Augsburg come out on top with a 43.7% home win probability. The draw is 24.8%, and Stuttgart are at 31.5%. The top score lines are 1-1, 1-2, and 2-1. So once again, the exact score leader is 1-1, but the total home win probability still makes Augsburg the stronger side overall. That matters. And it matters even more because Augsburg are also the hottest team in the recent form table. This is one of those matches where a low overall power rank and a very strong recent form signal collide in an interesting way. Now let's close with the market value radar. In the one-result market, Augsburg at home to Stuttgart is the top value spot according to the model. Dortmund at home to Hamburg is next. Mainz at home to Frankfurt also appears as a positive value position. In the goals market, the strongest value entries are all on the over side. Bayern against Union Berlin leads the way. Dortmund against Hamburg follows. And Augsburg against Stuttgart also shows up as a strong over 2.5 goals candidate. In the corners market, the highlighted value sits on the under 9.5 side in 3 matches. Bayern against Union Berlin, Köln against Gladbach, and Dortmund against Hamburg. So that is the weekly Bundesliga picture. Bayern remain the #1 team in the overall rating structure. Augsburg are the hottest team in recent form. Bayern against Union Berlin is the strongest one-sided match on the board. Wolfsburg against Werder Bremen gives the strongest corners environment. And Augsburg against Stuttgart is one of the most interesting crossover spots because it combines strong recent form, a competitive probability structure, and one of the clearest value signals in the one-result market. This is the numbers first map for the week. Use it as the analytical base. Then add your own layer from team news, injuries, tactics, lineups, motivation, and market movement. If you want weekly football analytics built on expected goals, power ratings, match probabilities, fair prices, and value spots across multiple leagues, subscribe to Edge of XG. Let's keep going.